The Ukrainian city of Odessa has been without power for 2 days following Russian strikes.
7 weeks after the national elections, coalition negotiations have begun in Austria.
Speaking at the end of the first day of the G20 summit in Brazil, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer promised the UK would double down on its support for Kyiv as Ukraine marks 1,000 days of Russia's full-scale invasion.
That's 1,000 days of aggression from Russia and 1,000 days of sacrifice from Ukraine. We need to double down. We need to make sure Ukraine has what is necessary for as long as necessary, because we cannot allow Putin to win this war.
President Emmanuel Macron mirrored Starmer's sentiment and said it is France's duty to help Ukraine protect its territory. He added that the change in the conflict triggered by the involvement of North Korean troops should not be underestimated.
Ça va? Bonsoir. La seule puissance qui fait une escalade dans ce conflit aujourd'hui, c'est la Russie, en engageant à ses côtés la Corée du Nord, qui est, on le sait, une puissance très agressive, qui est engagée sur un programme nucléaire avec des missiles de très longue portée. Et donc c'est véritablement une rupture dans cette guerre qui a conduit à ce choix des Américains.
Leaders of the world's 20 major economies also issued a joint declaration in which they called for a global pact to combat hunger, more aid for Gaza, and to end the hostilities in the Middle East.
The southern Ukrainian city of Odessa has been without power for 2 days, following Russian attacks which damaged critical infrastructure. Emergency power outages have been introduced across the region and some facilities have been switched to generators.
Надіємося, що світло появиться. Води не було цілий день зранку і десь до 6-ї, до 7-ї вечора не було води.
Invincibility points have been set up across the city where heat, water and electricity is being provided.
Як тільки в них є потреба, буквально 5 хвилин, і вони починають свою роботу. Вчора зранку потреба почалась, тому що люди почали до нас йти. Від ДСНС на території міста Одеси та Одеської області 45 пунктів незламності, які розгорнуті саме на базах пожежних частин. Людей сказати прямо, що їх дуже багато, то ні, але вони є постійно.
Efforts to restore the region's power supply are ongoing. EU buildings across Brussels have been lit up in the colours of the Ukrainian flag to mark the 1,000th day since Russia invaded in 2022. As of August this year, almost 12,000 civilians were reported as killed in Ukraine, according to UN figures. UNICEF says that figure includes 2,406 children. In Kyiv, a memorial to those lost continues to grow, with national flags placed to honour each soldier killed while fighting Russia.
Coalition negotiations have officially begun in Austria following several rounds of exploratory talks. 7 weeks after the national elections, a preliminary decision on Austria's future government was made on Monday. The far-right Freedom Party won the national elections in September. However, Austria's federal president gave the mandate to form a government to the runner-up, Karl Nehammer of the Austrian People's Party, as no party was willing to work together with the FPÖ and its party head Herbert Kickl.
Ich darf Sie heute informieren, dass wir die Sondierungsphase abgeschlossen haben und formell Regierungsverhandlungen mit SPÖ und NEOS aufnehmen. Gleichzeitig möchte ich klarstellen, dass wir noch nicht am Ziel jetzt einer Koalition oder eines gemeinsamen Regierungsprogrammes angekommen sind. Wir gehen jetzt in tiefe Regierungsverhandlungen, die ganz viele Detailbereiche berührt. Der Ausgang dieser Verhandlungen ist nach wie vor weiterhin offen.
Nehammer's coalition with the Social Democrats and Liberals excludes the FPÖ. A three-party alliance, as is being proposed, would be a first in Austria.
Slovakian and Hungarian politicians strongly condemned the decision by US President Joe Biden to allow Ukraine to strike targets inside Russia with American-supplied longer-range missiles. Slovakia's populist Prime Minister Robert Fico said the decision was made with the clear aim to completely thwart or delay peace talks.
Ide o bezprecedentnú eskaláciu napätia. Ide o rozhodnutie, ktoré marí nádeje na začatie akýchkoľvek mierových rokovaní a ukončenie vzájomného zabíjania Slovanov na Ukrajine.
Hungary's foreign minister also lashed out against the decision, saying the move could serve to escalate the war and threaten the outbreak of a global conflict.
Elképesztően veszélyes ötlet, amely a háború továbbterjedésének rendkívül súlyos veszélyével jár. Aztán itt van az ukránok követelése és egyes NATO tagországok megengedő véleménye Ukrajna NATO meghívásával kapcsolatban, amely pedig teljesen egyértelműen a harmadik világháború reális veszélyét hozná szintén nagyon közel.
The shift in policy added an uncertain new factor to Russia's full-on invasion of Ukraine, with the Kremlin warning the decision adds fuel to the fire of the war and would escalate international tensions even further.
The citizens of Georgia took to the streets on Tuesday morning demanding fresh parliamentary elections after what they call was a rigged election with Russia's assistance. The governing Georgian Dream Party was established by billionaire Bidzina Ivanishvili, who made his fortune in Russia and only narrowly won the vote back in October. In Tbilisi, police broke up demonstrations, several people were arrested. Ivanishvili's party has recently pushed through laws similar to those used by the Kremlin to crack down on freedom of speech and LGBTQ+ rights. The EU suspended Georgia's membership application process indefinitely in June after the country's parliament passed a law requiring organizations that receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad to register as, quote, pursuing the interest of a foreign power. The president of Abkhazia, Aslan Bazanya, has resigned following widespread protests against an investment deal which opponents claim would increase Russian influence in the region. Demonstrators stormed government buildings last Friday, forcing Bazanya to flee and plunging the self-declared republic into political turmoil. The president has said he will withdraw his resignation if protesters do not leave the buildings in the capital Sukhumi by Tuesday. Vice President Badr Gumba will assume the role of acting president for now. The unrest was sparked by opposition to a property agreement between Abkhazia and Russia, which would allow Russian companies to invest in the region. Opponents of the agreement argue that it would inflate property prices and increase Moscow's influence.
Clean-up efforts continue following severe flooding in Spain's Valencia region, with sewer blockages now the main concern for authorities. Workers have been attempting to free up the sewers for about a week, injecting water to soften the mud and absorb it through another pipe. So far, 60% of Pipewater's 75-kilometre sewage system has been cleared, but the sewers are still not being drained.
Tenemos un problema grande de atasco del alcantarillado en Pipewater. Están trabajando más de 25 máquinas en intentar resolver el problema. Por eso no podemos sacar ahora mismo, echar agua ni residuos a las alcantarillas porque empeoraríamos el problema.
There are also garages that are still full of mud, which can cause leaks in the drinking water network. However, Spain's public health says few infections have been detected, and those that have been are only minor. The mayor of Amsterdam has backtracked on her use of the word pogrom to describe the violence which erupted following the Ajax Maccabi Tel Aviv football match in the Dutch capital. Speaking to Dutch state media on Sunday, Femke Halsema expressed her dismay that the term had subsequently been manipulated to serve political agendas.
Ik wil wel zeggen dat ik in de dagen daarna heb gezien hoe het woord pogrom heel politiek werd en eigenlijk tot propaganda werd. De Israëlische regering die spreekt over een Palestijnse pogrom in de Amsterdamse straten. In politiek Den Haag wordt het woord pogrom vooral gebruikt om Marokkaanse Amsterdammers, moslims, te discrimineren. Zo heb ik het niet bedoeld.
It comes as Moroccan-born Dutch Finance Secretary Noura Akaba announced her resignation following comments made by the government's hard-right leader Geert Wilders. Last Wednesday, Wilders blamed Moroccans for attacks on the Israeli football fans, claiming that we saw Muslims hunting Jews and adding that it was fueled by Moroccans who want to destroy Jews. He also said those convicted of involvement should be deported if they have dual nationality.
"45 activists from Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement were sentenced to prison on Tuesday in the biggest case under the Beijing-imposed 2020 national security law, which widely criminalizes dissent. The activists were among the prominent Hong Kong 47 arrested in 2021 for their involvement in an unofficial pre-election primary vote that drew record turnout. Prosecutors accuse them of planning to paralyze Hong Kong's government by using a legislative majority to block government budgets indiscriminately. Hundreds of people stood in line in rain and winds for a seat in courts to show their support for the activists.
Of course, it will silence more people because you see how a primary can be illegal and lead to 10 years of sentencing. So, of course, it will silence more people.
Human rights organizations have criticized the sentencing for undermining Hong Kong's civil liberties and judicial independence.